Welcome to Transcendence Talks podcast with your host, licensed professional counselor, Kristy Crabtree. Join us as we build the bridge between psychology and spirituality and discuss psychology for the soul.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Transcendence Talks podcast. I couldn't be more excited to introduce to you all today my dear friend, who I've been honored to know. We were just talking before we hit record today for 8 years, actually probably longer. I've been a client of Sandie's for 8 years, but my good friend Sandie Clark, she's a massage therapist, but so much more. So much more. So Sandie, you're so humble and probably like wouldn't put yourself like I know you don't like labels and you never labeled yourself psychic or medium.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, like when you're on a massage table, it's like your soul's laid bare, like your body is laid bare on a massage table. And you, it's like the soul's just laid bare too. You know, we met 8 years ago and I was on a healing journey at that time. And my lungs had collapsed. You know, they collapsed when I was a teenager. That started when I was 16, and then I was in remission. Everything was okay, but I had this archaic surgery where they took talcum powder and put it in my chest wall to try to prevent the lungs from collapsing again. And they suspected cancer because it was such a rare surgery. And I'll never forget coming to you for the first time, and you looked at me and you said, "It's not cancer." And your confidence, right? My kids were in kindergarten and second grade. And babies. I remember thinking, yeah, they were babies and they're not gonna have a mom. And I think I was really unsettled by your confidence because I was thinking, man, if you know, like, if you're not sure, don't say that. Like, don't get my hopes up. Like, I'm so scared. But
you feel that way too when it rolls out of my mouth. It's like, wait, what? What did I just say?
Right? And I was like, if you are that sure, like, how can somebody be so sure? Like, and then you were right. And I didn't have cancer. And that's when I got my alpha-1 antitrypsin diagnosis. But that long-winded introduction to say, and ever since you've been a mentor, a guide, and a healer for me. And welcome. I'm so excited to introduce you.
Thank you very much. That was a beautiful intro. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And the feeling is mutual. You're very dear to me. Yeah, here we are.
Here we are. So I guess, you know, obviously what you do is so different and so special. I guess I want to start just by asking you, how did you stumble into this gift? You know, I know you don't want to label it. I know you don't like to label it, but it's a gift. And I mean, at what point did you realize I'm not just doing massage, right? I'm doing so much more.
You know, I thought a lot about that since I've known that you were going to ask me that. It's kind of evolved, honestly. It's I've always been interested in the human body ever since I was a little girl, and I've always felt things from the body, like other people's. Even when I was little, I remember, you know, touching somebody or giving someone a hug and just being drawn to certain body parts. In fact, I thought about this today. When I was like, 8 or 9 years old, I went to my girlfriend's house to play. Her dad, this is in Gilbert, way back when, her dad is a farmer. And anyway, we grew up and lost touch. And then probably 10 years ago, we reconnected and she asked what I did, and I told her, you know, for my work and whatnot. She goes, "Sandie, do you remember when we were 8 or 9 years old and you come over to play, and my dad just came in from the fields and he sat down and kicked back in the recliner and you went over and started rubbing his feet." And I didn't even barely know the man, right? And I totally forgot about this until she started talking. And then she goes, "We still talk about what you said." I was like, "What did I say?" And she's like, "You started rubbing his feet and you told him it's okay. He doesn't need to worry about making so much money." I was like, huh. You know, and it's like the body has a way and I'm sure this happens to a lot of people, I don't know, but the body has a way when I connect with it to kind of talk, you know, it kind of like certain body parts will draw me back to it or whatnot. And our bodies have stories to tell. I mean, you know that with your work, but it's almost like the physical body has its own psyche, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, every cell is alive, right? And every
Mm-hmm.
cell is living and independent, yet part of the whole, right? Of the rest of the
Yeah.
body. So, I mean, it's really interesting when you talk about every body part has its own psyche. Can you tell us more about that? I mean, are you tuning into organs, tissues, like?
It's everything. And sometimes it's hard to even know what it is. Like, what's talking? Who is this talking? And then, well, the way I've always been taught is, and this is from my spiritual group, my guides and angels, is every single body part has its own energy field. Every cell, every toe, every organ. And then, of course, we have our field as a whole. Now, I don't know the degree of intellect. It doesn't really matter. We're all energy anyway.
Yeah.
But just knowing that the body has an energy field and then each individual part has a field is kind of the same thing as us in the universe and the world, right?
Oh my gosh. Yes, paint me that comparison.
It's oh gosh, it was years ago. I was watching some commercial, and you've probably seen it, where they took a camera and they panned out, and it was inside of a woman's eye, right? And they just kept panning out and panning out and panning out. Pretty quick, you saw her face, then her head, then her body, and then it went up into the sky, and then you're looking at the world, right?
For that, yeah.
And then it pans back in, and that's when it occurred to me. Shortly after that was, whoa. All the billions of parts inside of us, quadrillions, the cells, the bones, the hair, each individual hair, everything has its own field around it. But yet we have a field as a whole. And that pretty much describes, for example, planet Earth.
Wow. So
look at all the souls and the fields and the plants and the animals and every blade of grass and so on and so forth. And so anyway, all that was completely off the subject, but on. And I think for some reason, I'm super, super sensitive to the energies. And that's how I've been since I can remember, as far back. But, you know, growing up in a very dogmatic religion and going to friends and family and saying how I feel and what I saw and what I see. And then, you know, not that I'm dissing anybody's anything, but it kind of, I just dumbed it down and forgot, and, you know, just didn't have an opportunity to live that type of life as a sensitive.
Right.
And then being told, oh, you're too sensitive, right? In a derogatory fashion. And then trying not to be so sensitive, which never did work. Anyway, raising my girls, I was in real estate and also a farmer's wife. And then probably 2005, I said, I am ready to do what I've always wanted to do. I've always been holistic minded. I love herbology. I love the anatomy. I love all the things. And so I went and got my massage diploma. And then, so to do your final in massage, you have to do a 90-minute massage on an instructor at the school. And I went to SWIHA. Anyway, so there was probably 12 tables lined up in this big room, and each of the students had an instructor. And mine, I had no idea who she was, never met her, never, you know, they did that on purpose. And I did a little mini consultation with her, connected with her body, started the session, and within 2 minutes, I'm on the ground, passed out. Now, mind you, my grades were so important to me because you're an adult, right? And I 4.0 on everything. I got a 3.86 on my final, which is ridiculous. But anyway,
you get dinged out.
I come to, and she's like a little German lady or something, but she's like pointing in my face, and she goes, "Come to the bathroom with me right now." So we excused and went in, and she's splashing water on me. And she goes, I'm like, what in the world happened? I've never passed out in my entire life. And she goes, did you protect yourself? I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? So that was my first experience with being absorbing a person's body, connecting with their body. And then, because what had happened is she taught Reiki, and she taught energy work. So she had just came from a full day of doing that and hit my table. And I had no idea what she was talking about as far as protecting or anything like that. And so that's how that started. And then,
appreciation.
Yeah, right. But so the first few months of my massage career, I worked at Massage Envy, and that didn't last long at all. It just I couldn't, because what I saw happening after, a couple hundred bodies is, oh my gosh, something else is going on here. When I touch the body, when I connect with the body, it's just like busyness and come over here and let's go here. And what about this? And what about that? And the body was just like nonstop communication. And then never had enough time. 50 minutes is not enough time to do that. So, gosh, I remember so many times, like I would have regulars there. And after seeing them 2 or 3 times and the body learned to trust me and really start to open, I'd connect with the person. And all of a sudden I get visions of her husband and another woman having an affair, And so what do you do with that information?
What do you do with information?
I just,
right?
Just kind of ignored it. Just like, well, first of all, you doubt yourself because, you don't, what am I doing? What is this? Is this my stuff? Is it theirs? Whatever.
So
but then
you do it a little bit. I mean, you start to doubt yourself, right? And do you feel like everybody who's sensitive goes through this process of wrestling with that a little bit? Like starting to recognize what's real, what's imagination, what's my gift?
And that's interesting that you would use those 2 words, being sensitive and imagination, because that's another thing I was always told is, oh, it's just your imagination. Well, of course it is.
Yeah.
What is imagination?
That's right.
What is the first part of the word imagination? It's image. Imagination is image. It's our intuition.
Absolutely.
But I think the reason we doubt ourselves that way, being intuitive, is because of our old operating system, our old core beliefs.
Yes.
And then when things really first start flowing, you doubt because it's your thoughts and it sounds like your voice coming out and talking, but it's, many times it happens in your sessions too, where I start saying things and I'm like, what am I saying? I didn't even know I knew that, And so, of course, I don't ever proclaim to be a psychic or a medium or a channeler, but it happens, it just happens. And why is it that I have that block of not wanting to say that, So those are all things to take a look at.
So how did you move through the old programming, and start to really trust your intuitive abilities?
I think it's just repetition. It's repetition, validation. When I would have clients call me or text me like that night or the next day and is like, oh my gosh, the things you told me about my knee, and it's there's no more pain or this or that, or after years and years of suffering from, say, low back pain, and there's been no surgeries, there's been no injuries, there's been, nothing but maybe improper posture. But then really diving in there and excavating that and listening to the low back, right? What does the low back have to say about this? And then the beauty of massage and this type of work together is massage gets the body in parasympathetic, and then that's when the body receives, that's when the body restores and heals.
When you're, because I notice with me, when I'm sitting in a counseling session, it's almost like my nervous system wants to do this co-regulation thing where it matches my clients. And then I use that to assess where they're at and then get them to mirror and match mine and bring them down. So I'm wondering, is the same mechanism active in you, where when your client goes into parasympathetic, does that almost activate that parasympathetic response in you and open you up as well? Is there a synergy in that?
There's definitely a synergy. And then in maybe absorbing or paralleling or whatever it is, you know, when we both, with our central nervous systems, I think you're able to hold more, what's the word? More of a vibration, more of a light. You expand. That's the word I'm looking for. Not that you're exalted or anything. It's different. You're expanding your energy. And that's when the magic starts happening, right? That's in the expansiveness. Now it's not me. I'm not tooting my horn here, but it's in that, and it just, like I said earlier, it just has evolved. You know, I couldn't teach a class on it and say, this is what you need to do this, right? And I think it's unique to each one of us too. But in that expansive state is when body starts talking. That's when we get visitors in the room. That's when we connect to this or that or the other. We get snippets of information and do channeling from whoever. A lot of times channeling happens, and it's channeling my client's soul, like their high self.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. So I have a million questions, and I'm just trying to figure out how to prioritize them, because there's so many kind of rich things that you said that I want to distill down on a little bit, because I guess in my mind, in my left brain, I'm trying to figure out, okay, body's talking. It's a cell with its own force field. It's an organ with its own field. Is there any correlation to those connected into the chakra system? I mean, is that a way that my brain can organize it, or is it separate from the chakras? And to piggyback on that, do the guides, the masters, the higher self, the angelic realm, do they come in connected to those body parts or individual?
Well, okay, the latter part we'll dive into first.
Okay.
Okay, what are our spirit guides and angels and deceased loved ones and ascended masters? What are they right now? When they come to you, what are they?
Their frequency.
Do they have a physical body? Their energy, right? And so that's how I feel. And of course, they appear to us as we can identify them. It's not like the grandpa's coming through as a 30-year-old in the prime of his life and this and that and the other. That's how he can show signs of symbols or images to me or the client or whatever, so that we know who the heck it is.
Yeah.
You know, some people can merge with energies and just know from the energy, oh, this is who that is. But, you know, 90% of the time, that's not how it works, because we're just not quite, I'm not quite that in tune. So we need cheaters. We need cheat sheets. And then absolutely everything has its own field of energy. But just like we were talking earlier, so do we. Sure. So does all the hundreds of things in this room. Even though this table is a tangible object, I can feel it still has a field of energy. I mean, how did this table come to be? What was it at one time? It was a thought. Yeah. A thought in somebody's mind, and that thought has energy, right? And then with focused thought, the table became a table, but it still has energy. It still is energy. So it's kind of the same way with the human body. What was the human body at one time? It was a thought.
Right.
And then it was created, but yet we still can feel it until we transition. And then that's when it gets confusing, because it's like, well, gosh, I saw grandma in a dream, and you know, maybe you felt a warm embrace or whatever, but grandma's energy right now. So how's that working? You know? So I don't know. Did that help with any of it?
Well,
this is just my understanding.
Yeah. Well, I felt like when you were describing like inanimate objects and their energy, it almost feels like you described the mechanism or the process behind psychometry or something, right? Like I've seen psychics.
I don't even know what that word means.
I've never seen like a psychic or somebody like I remember going to a group reading one time, and a psychic said, let me hold an object. Do you have an object from the loved one? Mm-hmm. and they throw a watch up there or something like that, and the psychic would be able to intuit information about grandpa through grandpa's watch, and it almost feels like that's the mechanism that you just described in this inanimate object that's just thought and energy.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. And like yesterday, for an example, I had a client, and I don't even remember the details or whatever, but I asked her a question and she said, well, no, but I was just thinking about that before I came in. And so there it is again. It's energy. What is thought, right? Thought is energy. And then they're like, how did you know that? Yeah. Well, I knew it because I merged with your energy, and that's, your body trusts me. Everything about you trusts me, and I'm just the voice.
So trust, that seems like such a key element. And when you talked about parasympathetic, those go hand in hand. If I trust you, I can relax and I can go into parasympathetic. Now, if you get a skeptic on your table and they're blocked and they're guarded, are you still able to intuit information, or do you need that trust or permission, I guess?
Yes. What happens is when I feel that they're doubting Thomas, or they're just eye rolling, or all the things, even though that's the session they wanted, right? And then I feel that, then the ego part of me, of course, is just retracts. And then we'll take it back to ground zero, and we'll just start with basic body work, and we'll, do more of the science part around it. Just the whole thing is sometimes when there's an awareness around an ailment, an injury, a tension, a tightness, or whatever, I'm talking physical body, the physical part of it, sometimes just if the client has that awareness and the body feels like, yep, he's finally listening, or she's finally listening, that's all it takes.
Wow.
So I'll just wrap it around and come back to that.
So you know where they're at.
Yes, like absolutely.
You're like, okay, you're left-brained. Let's talk about the science. You trust that, and that'll open you up enough to at least heal the injury or hear your body.
I think maybe I've told you this story before, but years ago, I had a very left-brained, I won't say any more details, but kind of a type of a doctor, right? He would come to me, and his work was very physical, what he did. So he would come like every other week, and we're talking 3-4 years, right? He comes in this one time, and I've had the same office set up since the get-go. I have my angels, I've got my crystals and stones, and then, your towel warmers and your table and all this. He comes in one day and he was super frustrated. He's like, I'm just so frustrated with my sister right now. And I'm worried about her salvation. I'm worried about, because he was Christian. And I said, well, what's going on? And he said, he flops on the table and his whole body just, rigid and tense. And he starts to tell me that his sister has been born and raised Christian, and she's still, very active in her church. But she went and learned that Reiki thing. And she does Reiki now, and he was just so upset about it, and in the meantime, his body's getting tighter and tighter, and it doesn't matter how much body work we do, right? And I'm looking around my room going, I wonder how he can come here 2 times a month and never pick up that vibe, but yet, because I'm a Reiki master, I work with guides and angels, and that was another thing he says, and she uses these crystal things, and I'm looking at my crystal wands and all my stones, and I was like, what is happening here? So the first thing I did is bring to his awareness what his body was doing, right? I was like, we're gonna lay here, you're gonna lay here, I'm gonna work on you till the cows come home, and nothing's gonna happen until we gotta dig a little deeper in this. I said, okay, now tell me what's really going on here. How are you really feeling about this? So anyway, the long and short of it is he had a lot of guilt around how he was feeling about sister. And it all went back to stuff that they went through in childhood. Now, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not even close to doing what you do, but listening to the body is what told us all those stories, right? Because he's like, gosh, I haven't even thought about this stuff for so long. And then all of a sudden foot would be like, okay, I need attention now. So we go down and work on some reflexology points at the foot. And then for some reason, it would just bring out all this stuff. And then we worked through it. So anyway, that was a little long-winded.
It's my mind, right? Because it's like, I feel like that's what I do as a therapist is I'm helping people make connections between, hey, your body's really tensing up when you talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
When do you remember feeling this tense or having this, feeling of guilt or whatever before? We're constantly trying to help them, just bring awareness to the body, to the emotional body, and bridge these connections. And it's like you're just doing it in a way that is bypassing, the client's own awareness that they're even doing that, because they're presenting for me in therapy like, hey, like I need to heal. And they're presenting to you like, hey, I don't deal with the emotions. I'm here for you to work on my body. And it's like you have this beautiful way of being like, yeah, that's what you think, buddy. You think we're just here with the body. Little do you know it's going to talk to me, and I'm going to make, we're going to go there. And I love it because it's like you have this gift, this way of just bypassing the left brain and getting into the body, which is going to bring them right into the wisdom, the storage of, because, even in therapy, we talk about the issues are in the tissues, and you and I have had plenty of experiences of me having traumas, memories that were housed in the tissue that had been repressed, that I hadn't remembered. And it wasn't until we've opened up some of those things that I was like, oh my gosh, my nervous system's been trying to tell me a story. And the body literally paints a picture. It leaves breadcrumbs, but it's up to me to follow the breadcrumbs and figure out, well, where does this go and why am I being shown these things? And you probably see that every day in your work, right?
Yeah, well, and it's kind of a delicate balance, because your body will never show you things unless you're ready to see it and feel it. Oh, we how that is in your work. People bring things up and they just can't. So back down it goes, and where is it stored? It's different for everybody. Yeah. There is no rhyme or reason to where we store stuff. You can't say, well, he carries the weight of the world on his shoulders, just like we all do. Of course, a lot of us do, but that every single person is so uniquely different, how they carry their triggers, their trauma, their happiness, their joy, all the range of emotions. And it's so interesting that it's all about trust with body. It really is. I always tell my people that sometimes body is just a little bit dumb. It's just this heap of flesh and bones and blood, and what runs the physical body, the master command station, right? The brain. But there's something else. It's called life force energy.
Yes.
And it's what we're given for this human experience. It's what makes us talk and move and process and all the things. And I've always been told and taught that it's given to us at conception. So, and again, that's my beliefs. Everyone has their own, sure. But, and then as soon as we transition, poof, it's gone. It's not our soul, right? It's our life force energy. And I've also been told by the beautiful nature elementals that a flower, because I was very concerned about my bouquet of lilies one time, the big, beautiful, what do they call them? Stargazer lilies, or the white ones. They're so fragrant and beautiful. I had a big bouquet of those once, and I just wanted them to last forever. So I had my crystal in the water. I changed the water every day. And then I was very concerned. And when they started to get a little bit, droopy and whatever. And then what I was told was the life force energy stays. Okay. The nature spirits stay with the plants until the life force energy is gone. And it's the same with people. Our guides and angels, everything, of course, stay with us, our humanness, until our life force energy is gone. Same with our pets. Same with all of the living beings and livingness of Earth. And then what happens when we transition? We become energy, right? And we go to where we go. And if that's the case, and our guides and angels are already energy, and our deceased loved ones, what does that mean? That we merge?
That's a great question.
And what do we take with us? The only thing we take from this experience is our experience. So when we all are energy again, is our experiences merged?
Right? I mean, what is that, right? Like the collective consciousness. I mean, I remember being shown this image one time, during meditation, kind of trying to make sense of all this, where it's almost like you're both, right? Like when you expand, you can blend and be all, and you can be one and you can be everything. And then it's almost like you can contract and you can just pull out this thread of whatever it is that makes you Sandie, or whatever it is that makes me Kristy. Yeah. And with just a thought, right? Almost like how your table became a table. It's just an intention that separates us out from the oneness and births us into whatever experience or journey, we're going to have. But it was an interesting tool.
That little analogy or whatever that was that we just talked about, the merging of energies and whatever, it's the same in the human body. Every, like we talked about earlier, every bone, every cell, everything has its own field, but there's also a general field, and that brings me to something too. Connective tissue is very talkative, very, very talkative. It's incredible how much we hold in our fascia, connective tissue, whatever you want to call it.
Why do you think connective tissue? What is it about? Is it just because it's literally, I don't know, I almost picture connective tissue like the highway, right? That runs through all of it.
Well,
superficially.
Have you cut up a chicken? You cut up a chicken breast.
Yeah.
That thin, like clear skin around it, that's connective tissue of the chicken. Now, remembering that we have that around every organ, every muscle, every group of muscles, and the body as a whole. And it's super strong. It's like, oh my God, I nerded out and studied connective tissue. I still do. It's so fascinating. But they did this study where they took from a cadaver, like a 6-inch square of connective tissue, and they kept hanging weight on it to see how much weight it would hold before it tore. And guess how much it held?
How much?
2,000 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
A ton, a little piece. Now, likening that to our physical bodies, so you can have adhesions or sore or illness or injury or something on your neck and feel it in your hamstring or your low back, because we have connective tissue in a continuous sheet from our forehead around the back of the body clear down to the feet. There's no breaks. That's the outer connective tissue. Now, underneath that is each individual thing that's wrapped in connective tissue. So I feel like, to me, isn't there a similarity there between energy fields and connective tissue? Yeah.
No, it's like where in the micro is the macro. Like it's
right.
It's just mind blowing. You know what I mean?
I know it. So yeah, imagine my days. I mean, I am just blown away. So many miracles, and I just can't learn enough. It's just like the speck of knowledge that we have. But if you kind of draw that comparable parallel there, and then treat that the body similarities. Sorry. So say connective tissue around the heart, right? And you feel that tightness and tension. Of course, I can't get in there and massage a heart. But when I'm in the heart space and I feel the constriction, is it that their heart is unhealthy? Probably not. It's more of a guardedness, probably 9 times out of 10 when I get a new client and I get to work their face up and I work their left arm, it's like concrete.
Wow.
Because most of us are very guarded. We're guarding our heart space, and the body is trying to protect you, get away from my heart. So,
and the clients know it too. They know it.
That?
The clients know it too.
Mm-hmm.
In the work that I do, my primary modality is internal family systems therapy. Mm-hmm. And clients come in and, in that system of therapy, we have exiles, which are the part of us that we that are injured. They've sustained the emotional damage. They tend to be very young. But then because those exiles have been injured, we want to fiercely protect the little parts of us that have been emotionally burdened. So we put these protectors in place. And that's why people present into therapy is usually the protectors, not the exiles. There's firefighters and there's managers, and the firefighters are like, okay, I don't want to feel the pain. So I'm just going to, drink alcohol. I'm going to have affairs. I'm going to do these things that people might consider shameful, but it's really all in protection. Or
Right.
people are managered and they have these walls that are just like, hey, I'm going to make sure I'm perfect so that I'm not criticized. But we don't see it. That's the old programming you were referring to. And it's funny because when I get into it with clients and we're talking and I'm like, okay, so you have this behavior you don't like you're not feeling joy, right? Where do you feel that numbness in your body? And they'll say, oh, I feel constriction and tightness in my chest. Yeah, how old does that part feel, right? And they can name it. They can say, well, I think that constriction in my chest has been there since I've been 5 years old. Okay, what was going on at that time when you were 5? And so it's like I can bring them back there and they can name it. And it's not until they can surrender the protection that they can even begin to look at the injury that caused them to protect. And so the answer is always more surrender, more
Right.
go, so that they can, and sometimes it has to start with the physical body. Sometimes I can't get clients to let go of the emotional protectors until they can just relax in the physical body.
Yes. And that's the beauty of massage.
Mm-hmm.
With the beauty massage, I mean, when you think of a massage, you instantly, you do a big sigh.
Yeah.
Oh, I want that right now. Everybody likens body work to just restore and relax and revive, right? Yeah. And so imagine how body feels. Like when you take your intellect out of that, imagine how body feels when you lay on the table, and body, remembering with the theory that body kind of has its own mind, right? Mm-hmm. It's got its own energy field. It's got its own parts, whatever. Of course, body's going to trust.
Yeah.
And then like my regulars that I see all the time and I've seen for years, I can feel when they're here before I even see them, right? That's how connected you get. But their bodies are already in parasympathetic as they're walking down the hall before they even get on my table. That's just, there's muscle memory for sure. So there's also energetic memories in the body.
Right.
And like we were saying earlier about where connective tissue and how connective tissue stores emotions and feelings and pain, and physical and mental for sure. You cannot bypass that when you're in sympathetic. You just keep adding to it. You keep piling up in there. But and like we said earlier too, there's no way that unless body feels safe and trust, that it will even let you take a peek.
Wow.
Right.
Of course not. Those protectors are going to come up and they're going to go, I'm fine, everything's fine. Are they going to, be combative? Yeah. No, that's not in alignment with my beliefs or whatever, right? You're going to it all, the protectors.
And body likes to operate on super old operating systems. Body needs to upgrade from DOS to Windows,
That was amazing.
But it's true. It's like we still operate on an operating system that we had when we were 4.
What is that? Is that the nervous system? What is that operating system?
I think it's everything. I think it's a combination of all. It's all the energetic prints, all the wounds, all the triggers, all the things, all the knowledge, all the intellect, all the things. I think it's just a compilation of everything.
Right.
That's a God question.
I know.
God questions.
Really?
We're getting deep today.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Speaking of God, where do guides and angels fit into this equation for you? Because it sounds like you're getting messages from multiple sources. It's like, I've got the body talking. I've got the higher self talking. I've got guides and angels talking. And sometimes we're channeling, right? So it's like there's so many frequencies that you can tune into when you're working with an individual in their body. How do you know which station you're tuning into when you're working?
Well, I'm just the conduit.
Yeah.
So I have to just let it all happen, and it's been, well, it's been years and years and years. And it's been me stopping resisting it, because it's going to happen whether I want it to or not. Right. For me to continue my career as a massage therapist, this is how it's going to be. And I had to come to terms with that. And you were a big helper in that coming to terms.
Thank you.
But after that guard went down, it was just like blew open a whole new world. And it's not scary. Surprise. There's nothing scary about it, because it's nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me at all.
Yeah.
And, the guides and angels just organically, they'll, some very, very, very rarely do they not come through in one form or another. I mean,
True.
I had the most skeptic lady for years and years, and we just strictly did massage, right? And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. And we did great things with the body, lots of success stories there. But I was at her head one day towards the end of the massage and had her in a cranial hold and, just working the muscles of her neck. It wasn't any energy work or anything like that. And I kept getting this vision of rubber tires and then plumbing, like a pile of plumbing parts. And I'm like, it was serious. And that's happened to me before at that time, but it's like, I know I'm with a client that doesn't want to talk about that kind of stuff. Right. So I'm like, I'm just going to go on a limb. And I said, you know the type of work I do. And she's like, yeah. And I said, it's not all body work, right? She's like, yeah. Tense, right? Tense. And I said, well, I need to tell you that I keep getting these snippets in my mind of a rubber tire and plumbing parts. I mean, I'm not a plumber, but I know there's male and female plumbing parts, right? And I said that. I said male and female plumbing parts. And she goes, it's my dad.
Oh.
I'm like, okay, you have to enlighten me a little bit more. Why is your dad showing me this to show you? Because she goes, because my dad cheated on my mom so much. And he always justified it by saying, I wore a rubber. And my mom would say, you need to control your plumbing parts.
Whoa.
And so I was like, well,
deceased.
Yeah, dad is deceased. And so is mom. But then I'm like, well, why would your dad want you to know this right now? And what's the significance of coming through when he knows, that you're not really prone to this? And she said, because today's his birthday. And I really found myself talking to him today. It's his birthday today.
So he used that information to validate his presence with her. Wow.
Just to help her know, yes, I'm hearing you. I do hear you.
Specific. I mean,
I'm not that far away.
No. And it's so random and so specific. I mean, it's not like that's just like, oh, dad loves you. That was like, only you would know that, sister. Only you would know that.
Wow. Well, and I guess he was a jokester and, had a sense of humor. So it definitely came through.
So then when we die, it's like there are aspects of us that remain. His sense of humor, his memories.
Right.
It sounds like he used that to communicate and give her the validation she was looking for.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
I mean, it is proven to me several times a week that that's the case.
That's
so
amazing.
In my world, I guess it is. I guess it is so.
So how are people assigned angels and spirit guides? How do we make those connections?
How do we make the connections?
Well, or I guess how are they assigned to us, right? Like, why would a spirit guide choose to work with me or with you? Do they stay your whole lifetime? What is that like?
Well, my belief is spirit guides come and go. And sometimes they stay the whole life. Sometimes they're deceased loved ones, our pets. I have a griffin as a spirit guide. It's whatever. It's individual to all of us.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Angels are different, on the other hand. We all have guardian angels. Mm-hmm. And I can't honestly say if we have 1 or 3 or 10, or I've seen and felt legions of angels around a specific person before. So I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. But I do know that we all have guardian angels. Now, they're a whole different, for me, a different vibrational frequency than spirit guides. Spirit guides are off the charts vibrating, right? Angels are just, the vibration is so high, it's almost like it brings tears to your eyes, and this makes your body warm. And it's, and my primary guide and angel and anything at all in my life is the Archangel Michael. Changed my life, has been with me as a constant. And I look back in my life and I know experiences where he saved my life. And angels aren't a gender. Right. They probably don't have wings, but we see them, they show them to us as we can know them and perceive them. We can have individual relationships with our spirit guides and our angels. Absolutely. And how are we supposed to do that in a human form if we can't have a visual?
Right. Yeah. We're here in this 3-dimensional space, right?
Yes.
Something to ground into.
So the Archangel Michael to me first appeared as a royal blue essence, like an aura. But now I've got my visuals of him, and his energy is very intense, but yet our relationship is so close that it's just almost hourly. Wow. We're communicating and talking. So and as far as our guardian angels, I believe that they came when we're conceived. And I also believe that we get to pick each other, right?
Yeah.
We get to pick when we're born, and we pick our parents. And so why the heck can't we pick our guides and angels?
Let's pause there, because I feel like I believe that too. I mean, radical responsibility. All of this is for us. All the good things, all the bad things. It is all for our growing and knowledge, and we're co-creating in this life together. But that concept, I think, is hard for people, because sometimes people feel, rightfully so, like a victim to their own circumstances, to their family situations. How do we begin to start to transcend that duality of shifting blame, of right and wrong, and really seeing radical responsibility in each situation, and recognizing the gift in the pain, right? Like the pearl. But how do you help people do that?
Oh, well, that's a very good question.
I feel like it's a process, right?
It is. It's a build upon layering process, but the most important thing is right at the get-go is to find that person's unique way that they connect to God or creator, and it doesn't matter what religion you are. I mean, I've got clients that are LDS and Catholic, and I mean, no religion, anti-religion. It doesn't matter. As long as you have a belief in something.
Yeah.
It can be a tree. It does not matter. We all have to have something to connect to, or good grief, what a hot mess we'd be, right? So then just honoring their belief system, ask them what it is and what their spiritual belief system is. And then we just build on that. Yeah. So say they're Catholic, right? And their spiritual belief system is Catholicism. And I don't really know a lot about that, but, and then when they're talking about their belief systems and we feel the energy of Mary, and to me, it feels like Mother Mary, but how do I say that, right? Is it Saint Mary? Right. Is it Mother Mary? I mean, you have to get the terminology right, or they're going to shut down, right? They're going to be like, oh, this or that. That's where the connection between their guides and angels flowing through me to them, that's where that comes in, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because I'm guided and intuitively prompted to say it as they can understand it. Same concept as when a deceased loved one shows yourself to a medium, or shows themselves to a medium, right? They're going to show that medium things that the client can relate to, so they know who it is.
Right. Well, and it sounds like it's given to you in such a way that the client can receive it. Because, if you say your spirit guide is here to somebody who's Catholic, they're probably going to just, like you said, tense up and shut down and you've lost them.
Right.
But if
that's the only reason their spirit guide is there. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
That's the only reason their spirit guide is there,
Mm-hmm.
right? To help them with their connection. So, and my goal in this, and I tell my clients this, my goal, my part of this in our relationship as client and massage therapist is to help them be able to connect without me.
Right.
Because we all need that. And it doesn't matter if it's prayer, if it's meditation, if it's walking in the mountains, it honestly does not matter. Mm-hmm. And once they get, and that's why the guides and angels and ascended masters, all of them sometimes are so prevalent, and very loud. Mm-hmm. And to tell them a specific thing, because it's a very important thing that the client will just, oh, wow. And the light turns on, right?
Yes.
I don't know that. I don't know these things. I mean,
but you need the clients to validate that experience. So, okay, we're barking up the right tree. And I know, just in my 8 years of being a client and a friend of yours, I feel like for me, my own intuitive gifts have deepened and expanded. And a lot of it has been shown to me through signs and synchronicities and learning how to trust that the signs and synchronicities are real. And then being able to tap into something even a little bit deeper than that. And then trusting that my own knowing is real. And it was such a progress, and still a progress, of deepening and expanding that. But like if somebody today was like, okay, where do I even start with connecting with my spirit team, right? My guides, my angels, my loved ones. And how do I know that the communication is valid without somebody like you? What would you tell them?
Well, the first thing is to connect with ourselves, not the body, not meditation, not prayer, not any of that. Connecting with our soul, the higher part of us. Mm-hmm. And typically what I'll have a client do is take 1 minute, set the timer because it feels like eternity.
Yeah.
And you can close your eyes, but be in a space where no one's around you. And just connect. It doesn't matter if your thoughts race. Don't try to get rid of them because you can't, right? It doesn't matter if you're in a lotus position. It doesn't. You can be sitting in your car. 1 minute and just be with yourself. We've lost that. We haven't lost it from our life experience, but we've forgotten.
Right.
When you have a big decision to make, you personally, when you have a big decision to make and you just can't decide what to do, where do you go for your information?
Yeah, I have to realize that I'm kind of blended, right? Like usually if I can't decide or I'm not clear, I'm just kind of blended with an emotion, and it's like it clouds my vision. So the first thing I have to do is for me, it looks like talking it out loud so I can step outside of the emotion. I personally, I need somebody to share my feelings with. And once it's expressed and it's like that feeling is witnessed appropriately, like, cool, I'll soften and give you space so that you can connect and that channel can open.
And that's a learned behavior for you, because that's not how you were born.
No,
you weren't born. You were born self-sufficient, and you had that sixth sense, your intuition, your connection to you. We have everything we need in our soul, right? That we have all the guidance, because the soul is not having this linear time human experience, right? The soul is, and so it's mind-blowing to tell a person, if a person asks, how can I connect to that? Well, you first have to connect to yourself, right? Because what are you? Your energy. You're limitless, and then once they get that little tiny speck of connection, it's not like this big earth-shattering thing. It's just like, oh, wow. When I first started doing that, I would literally open my eyes and look out the window and my vision was crystal clear.
I love that you use that word. In IFS, they have a term for that, which I think is so cool. It's like all this stuff is like also evidence-based. Like it's so real, so universal. But, in IFS, they'll call it self-energy. And when the emotions are all aside, you feel clear, you feel calm. It's like this creativity comes in, there's clarity.
Well, if you can physically, visually see better, see more clear with your physical eyes, what is it doing to your connection with you and you?
Absolutely.
And then it gets easy. Say you have a big decision to make, you can go within just for a microsecond, right? That's all it takes, because now you're honed in on how to do that, and ask yourself for guidance. And then it's always, always, always the very first thing that comes up, the very first thought, the very first sign, the very first something. And after that, ego comes in and went, oh, that's just your imagination, or this, no, you can't do that, or this or that. So, and if you still doubt it, that's when it's helpful to get validation from your guides and angels, right? And that comes in very, very unique forms for every single person. You know, people connect through prayer, sometimes meditation, sometimes they just ask and there it is. Sometimes some people need to ask for signs, or you know, people need to go to mediums or psychics or massage therapists or whatever. You know, and that's okay. There's not a right or wrong way. What's that?
How do you do it, right? Because we all come to you, you know, like, okay, I need my experience validated, right? So I'm learning and growing. So for you, how do you do it? How do you connect with you?
Well, if there's an issue going on that I need immediate answers to, I have to get into the quiet space and connect. But I have to be honest, I connect easier to my angels and my spirit guides than I do myself. But I guess it's one and the same, more to speak. Right. But it's just, and I think everyone's that way, right? So if you can hone in the connection to yourself, then it's a cakewalk to connect to guides and angels, right? And also creator, however that is. To me, of course, I have a relationship with God, but it's more user-friendly to me to work with angels and guides. I don't know. And especially guides, because most of them have walked the earth. Most of them have had earth lives, right?
Right.
And so it just seems like, and this is just totally me and my humanness, but it's like, well, they'll understand this, right? They'll understand this because, like Jesus, for an example, he'll understand this because he was here, you know, he was here. So, hey, you know, come help with this, or show me guidance on this, or whatever. And it doesn't need to be formal.
Right.
You don't have to fold your arms and bow your head and kneel to an altar. No.
There's no rules.
There's no rules.
No.
I mean, there's definitely power in numbers for prayer or asking, for sure. But that doesn't mean that you're limitless. I mean, you have as much power than a room full of people.
Right.
So it's all about your connection.
Right.
It's a very beautiful thing.
It sure is, my friend. It sure is. And I mean, you and I, you know, in working together this long now, I feel like we have so many shared clients too, because I feel like your abilities are just like this resource that I can't keep to myself. Like, you know, and the coolest thing is, like, I'll joke with my clients. I'll like, hey, we're going to do some work, but I also want you to go to Sandie because your spirit guides will likely write the treatment plan for me. It's so amazing. You know what I mean?
It's worked.
Oh my gosh, it works, because sometimes we'll get, like, you know, a release of information and you and I can kind of chit chat, and it's like, I feel like my clients experience this expedited healing when they're working with you, because they're learning how to connect. They're learning how to tune.
Yes.
They're learning how to relax. And when they're able to do that and start to learn how to seek and trust guidance that they can do with me, they're more open, they're more receptive, and they is exponentially faster.
Well, they're learning who they are.
Yeah.
They're connecting to them and them. Whoa. I didn't mean to say that. They're connecting to themselves. Like it's now between them and them. Yeah.
And it always was. And it always is, right? Because I think we look at the end of the day, if there's anything I've learned through my own personal healing journey, through my work with psychedelics, it's always been between me and me, you know?
Yep.
And it's just always required learning to let go and feel and trust. And that's it.
And no guilt.
Yep.
No guilt about it.
Yep.
There's no guilt in it. There's no guilt if you don't feel like you're doing it properly. Mm-hmm. If you don't feel like, well, that prayer isn't effective and it's probably not going to come true, or I'm not going to be heard because I'm not in church. Right. That's not true. I'm not saying anything bad about churches, because it's probably very powerful when you pray in a church, right? Mm-hmm. Or a temple or but it's so limiting to that we believe that we have that belief system sometimes, and it stops us, literally stops us. And also the guilt that we have, like, for an example, sometimes in your sessions, I'm like, well, how do you feel your connection has been? Mm-hmm. Well, not very well. Remember like a couple years ago or whatever, you said that, I don't know, I just feel like detached. And then there was the guilt of it. Right. It's like, exactly. That's just part of being human, and another thing to remember is that our guides and angels don't have egos like we do. So there's not going to be that, oh my gosh, I'm presenting myself to them with the same problem I've had my whole entire life, and I'm a victim again, and this and that. They don't care. No. They do not care. Their whole mode, just like how body serves us, they're here to protect us, to help us, to guide us. They can't do any of it unless we give them permission and ask, though.
Well, and they're guiding us right back to our true nature, right? Which is unconditional love, just like they are.
Yes.
The guilt, the shame, the blocking beliefs, the programming, it's all, none of it is, like you said, is what we were born with. We were born pure love. And but returning to that.
Yes. They have no judgment, though, when they help us and guide us from the lower vibrational emotions and feelings. They don't have judgment, because how could there be judgment if we experience hate? How could there be judgment if we experience joy or bliss, or, the broad spectrum of emotions? Let's, and I say this to my clients all the time, but if you believe say you believe that some sort of creator created this body, right? In our experience, right? Yeah. Well, if that's the case, then this magnificent creator created emotions and feelings for us. That'd be pretty messed up if we didn't have those, right? Mm-hmm. So this creator created love and joy and bliss and happiness and peace. But guess what? Creator also created jealousy, anger. How could it not be that way? Because the world is a world of dichotomy. There has to be the opposite. So is it really bad to experience anger? Of course, if you're hurting yourself or somebody else. But if we were taught from a young age how if we were taught that it's okay to express the anger, and then what if our parents hugged us and said, you did a good job expressing that tantrum?
Imagine the world would,
right.
We surrender to anger. We move through instead of this like emotional constipation that we all develop. Like, ooh, don't feel the anger. I don't want to be a bad girl, right? And then we get emotionally just so clogged up.
Or the time we come home from school and said, I hate Tommy. Oh, you don't hate. You go to your room. You're grounded right now. And what is that teaching us? And our parents didn't know. I mean, I raised my girls that way. It's just how you do it. Right. But it teaches us that the other spectrum of feelings and emotions are bad, and we're punished for it.
Yep.
So, we're in adulthood as hot messes, but it's good job security for you.
Sure is, right?
But it's almost like we have to relearn all the things. Yeah. We relearn. And that's where, again, our guides and angels are huge helps for us, because we ask for help. And they guide us to the right therapist. They guide us to the right book. They guide us to a little whispering of a sign of something. And the bottom line is, if we can just feel that beautiful, unconditional, Christ-like, God-like, creator-like, whatever love, if we can just feel that one time a day, it's the best multivitamin ever.
Oh, I love
it. And that's where I feel especially our angels come into play, because they're kind of like that conduit
of love.
They're user friendly. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that, you know, I mean, if there was anything I think I had going for myself early on, when I had no idea, just fumbling around the earth as a teenager, right? Thing I did know was there seemed to be synchronicities. There seemed to be little opportunities to, hey, why don't you try taking this tarot class? Where you're going to find
Yeah.
people who really support you. And it's like, oh,
Or
that's
your chakra class.
the chakra class. Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, and little promptings like that along the way. I mean, my gosh, that's how I found this office. My stepdad passed away. And he was like this business guru. You know, I know you know him, Frank, and I bring him to session often. But you know, he passed away, and I felt like, oh my gosh, you know, my parents can't guide me in business. Frank always guided me in business. I don't even know what I'm going to do. So I just started talking to him. You know, just surrendered completely. I don't know how to do this. I need your help. And I had these dreams. It was in 2019, prior to him, or after he had passed, years after he had passed, and it didn't make sense because I had no aspirations at the time to turn inner light counseling from a solo practitioner practice into a group practice. But I'd have these dreams that I'd go to work one day and I would go to put the key in the lock and it wouldn't unlock the door anymore. And I'm like, what the heck? And I thought it was just a stress dream. I was like, I can't get in. I'm having another stress dream, whatever. But I would turn around and sure enough, there was Frank and he handed me a new key. And the dream was like different, but the same every time I had it, where like he'd hand me a key and I'd open the door and there'd be like this beautiful office with a balcony overlooking like a body of water or overlooking a beautiful mountain scene. But the only similarity was Frank was there. He gave me the key and it would unlock this beautiful space. And in 2019, I was really missing him. And then COVID hit, right, in 2020. And I was like, man, now's the time. I am so busy with clients. Everybody's needing help for obvious reasons during this pandemic. I need to hire. It's time to expand. And I needed to get a space, but I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Frank was into commercial real estate. He would have known. And little did I know that he had been prompting me for a year. I mean, it was literally written in the stars for more than a year prior to me opening this business that I'd be opening the business. Because when I went to go look for a space, I wasn't having much luck. And then I saw this listing and I was like, ooh, this price is really good. I'm going to check it out. Prime location in downtown. And I opened the door. I'm like, oh, this place is heinous. The carpet is from like the 1980s with like coffee stains in it. And like the walls all beat up. But I was like, well, these are really nice, substantially sized offices. And I'm like, I'm going to walk and check out each one. And I walked to the back. And the first office I walk into, when I look to the left, there's the balcony that you can see right behind me.
Ding, ding.
I got the chills. The room was cold, but I was warm and like stood still. And it was like all the dreams started coming back in my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is it. But I was like, it makes sense because it's so freaking ugly. And so my husband's with me and he was like, well, it's COVID time. Nobody's looking for leases. Everybody's trying to get out. And, you know, sure enough, everything went swimmingly after that. Like, he was like, okay, cool. Like, we'll redo the floors, we'll redo the walls, like, whatever you need, just, can you start paying rent? And so, you know, I swear it's like now there's a pink chair behind me. And every time I go to hire somebody, every time I make a business decision, I put Frank in that chair. And I just say, hey, I want to feel you with me. And the decisions never feel logical. They feel like I'm being tugged or pulled in one direction and away from another. And that's the best way I know how to describe it. But
that was beautiful. I'm glad you described that.
Thank you.
Because that's very important for people to understand that. We always wonder, how do you know if it's guidance or if it's my own voices or my own imagination or my own this or that? And that's how you know. It's that magnetic pull.
That's it. It does. It feels like a magnet. That's a great description. And sometimes it feels like a magnet going the other way, where this is not for you. And it feels.
But it's the first initial feel is the right one. And then after that, the ego part comes in and starts, well, this is just going to be too much money, or I don't know if I could live with this carpet or this or that or the other. You know what I mean?
I do.
So.
Yeah, it's so hard to trust, especially when you're getting acquainted with your intuition, or when you're for me, I notice it's the more challenging it is the more emotionally committed I am to an outcome. When I'm hiring,
Yes.
I'm not that committed. I'm like, I want to find the best candidate. This is business.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't feel super emotional, so I can feel the tug. But if I'm like, oh, there's a puppy and I really want a puppy,
Yeah.
it's harder for me to use discerning guidance because I want a puppy. Or whatever it might be, right? I want whatever that I'm committed to getting.
Mm-hmm.
And when my emotions are involved, for me, that's where I have to take that extra step and process
Mm-hmm.
it out loud so I can connect to me.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But you've reached inward for the first step.
Right.
And then you will go outward for the next step. That's how you've honed into that. And it's working amazing for you.
It is. And everybody's process, I think, is different. And
Yeah,
you can find that
for sure.
themselves. But I think one thing they can trust is that if they ask for the guidance, that it will show up, and it'll show up in signs and synchronicities that they can call coincidence, but eventually won't be able to deny.
And you can ask specific ways for it to show up. You know, some people see a feather and that's their symbol that their angels are around, or other people's like, oh, my dad's a butterfly, or, you know, and it doesn't matter, but you can ask for specifics. Otherwise, you know, we're human.
Yeah.
We're kind of dense sometimes.
We are.
You know, even I do this work, you know, 4 or 5 days a week and help people with knowledge and information and whatnot. But I still this was before we moved, the year before last. I was having a day and I was on my way into the office and I'm like, okay, Michael, I need a sign that you're with me. I know you are, but I'm dense right now. Mm-hmm. You know, smack me, whatever it takes. I really need to feel comforted. And I was driving my truck down Lindsay, and all of a sudden this landscape trailer, the truck and the trailer cuts me off and pulls right in front of me. I was like, well, that's nice. Thanks. You know, that's a great sign.
Yeah.
And what is it? You know, I'm looking at the license plate. Is there something here for me? So I'm just kind of like, that's a sick sense of humor, Michael. And then it wasn't even a windy day, right? But as soon as all my doubting Sandie sarcasm is out there, this Ziploc bag gets swooped up from the back of their trailer, hits my windshield and busts open, and there's a million white feathers in it. Wow. So I'm like, okay.
Like,
tuck my tail between my leg. Eat crow.
Wow. Well, and I love what you just said too, because for me, that's such a powerful reminder. Ask for the guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget to ask, you know? I think that's so critical, because it's like for me, the more separated I feel from myself, the more emotional I am, the harder the day I'm having. Mm-hmm. That's when I don't remember.
Yeah.
The steps to take.
Well,
ask for guidance, ask for this to be removed so that I can have the clarity.
And we need to not forget to ask for guidance for our physical bodies.
Mm-hmm.
As we can ask for guidance if we're looking for a specialist or a doctor. If we have that intuitive feeling that we need to change our diet, freaking ask for guidance. I mean, it will come, and it comes fast. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, you're like hearing things or seeing things online, or you know, being asked to join Facebook pages, or it'll just be like a windfall of information. Because there's something about, I haven't figured it out yet. I probably never will, but there's something about our guides and angels really wanting to be a part of our physical experience, even our physical bodies, even some of the decisions you've made in the past 6 months. Right. And I honestly feel that they want to be a part of every aspect of our life, not just decisions, or should I be with this person or not, or should I move here or there, or should I take this job or whatever. Yeah, those are the big wigs, but the little minuscule things, you know, there's specific archangels for specific topics, is how I was taught years ago. And I have studied that. So I'll just kind of, you know, pick one to go shopping with me, because I hate shopping, you know. So it's just like, can we just get this over with? And can I find the best deals and the best product and this and that and the other? Sure, shooting. It's a pleasant experience. Or I hate them all. I don't want to have to park clear on the other side and walk. So, and my grandkids are usually with me. And sure enough, a car pulls out, we get a top-notch parking spot, and then they're like, you asked the angels, didn't you? And I'm like, yep.
I mean, even to that point, right? Like, don't be afraid to ask for something as small or seemingly irrelevant as a parking spot. Like,
right.
Don't be like, no, I mean, I think if anything I've learned from you, it's like no request is too small, you know, because I think some people like, oh, like, let's reserve this for the times when we really need it. But they truly are that involved in our lives. They truly care
exactly
us to that degree that they're like, it's almost, it feels like a game sometimes that we play. Like,
and it's not that we're codependent on them. It's not that we start taking our own choices away, because remember, they can't violate our will. So they're not doing that. They're guiding. It's like having the most beautiful life coach and guide by our sides, many of them, you know, and I've told you and a lot of my clients this. I'll say it real quick because I know you have to go. Or do you? We could do this all day.
Yeah, we could. I know.
But something I do that's really powerful, especially if I have a big decision to make, is I'll call a team meeting. And so I have the most beautiful, well, in my special place that we all have in our mind, right? Yeah. Of course, it's in the mountains by a creek, and it's beautiful flowers everywhere. But I have this huge conference room table. It's round and it's carved of the most beautiful wood on the planet. And there's like, a dozen chairs around, and they look like thrones because they're inlaid with beautiful crystals and gemstones. And what I do if I have a big decision is I'll call everybody in that's in my group, and I'll visualize my Buster dog on my left. He's my heart dog. And then Archangel Michael on my right, my guardian angels behind me. And then I'll just start filling those chairs. And they're all my team leads, like my grandma, or, you know, maybe Jesus, or, you know, just it could be Zeus, right?
Yeah.
A mythical, whatever, per whatever it is that I'm needing. You know, say I'm moving. I need help finding moving trucks. I need help. First of all, I need help finding a place to live, right? And then I need help finding a good lender, good title company, good all these things. And I'll just assign somebody, and for the house to sell at a timely manner and for a good price. Bam, that's your responsibility. And then we'll tune in every few days, and it's very powerful.
Yeah.
It really is.
What a beautiful meditation. What a beautiful tool, right?
It's been powerful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But why not? Why don't we use this more?
Yes, it's so I feel like for me, using those tools has only affirmed and strengthened my intuition, because that's how you get the confirmation, and that's how you start to learn to trust. You ask, you receive, and it affirms your beliefs.
Yes.
Reinforces.
Yeah. And we need that continually.
Yeah, we do.
Because, we soon forget all the ways that we're so richly blessed, and we have so much gratitude. But I think it's part of the human makeup, because why do we forget it so easy? And why is it that we always remember the bad things so easy? It's just crazy.
It's so true. Right? It takes intention. It takes such deep intention to feel that gratitude. But I think that's such a beautiful practice too. It's just, if you can find one thing just to really like bring it into your heart and feel it.
Yes.
And allow the walls to come down, allow the heart to open. Whether that's, you know, looking at your children, at your dog, at the pillow on your bed, like whatever it has to be that day, in gratitude. Because I think that old programming, it's like we're running on these scripts of negativity, and it's so easy to think that we're alone and to get so caught up in that sometimes. Because life is hard. I don't want to minimize it. It
is.
It's not all,
you know, and that 1 minute a day thing is so helpful for me, because we can't do anything unless we're connected to ourselves. Not one dang thing.
No.
You know, and it just brings you into that yummy place where you're just, I got this, you know, and then you feel the empowerment.
It's like a flow state, right? Like, I mean, there's times in life where I know I felt like I've been rowing upstream, and there's times where I can just flow down. And it doesn't mean that the times that I feel like I'm flowing downstream, there aren't hard things happening. It's just,
Yeah.
I can navigate it with a little less resistance, with a little more trust in the process, and a little more faith.
Right. And also knowing life's always gonna, there's gonna be ebbs and flows. There's always gonna be injuries, illnesses, body aches.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna lose jobs. We're gonna lose our loved ones. It's gonna be torrential.
Yeah.
It's just how planet Earth life is, you know, and not thinking that, oh my God, things are going so good right now. I'm just so glad to be in this space where things are going so good. And then bam, the next day,
So true.
some catastrophe happens. And then what's the first thing we do? We start shaming ourselves because, well, maybe I didn't pray enough, or maybe I should have meditated longer. Maybe it's because I cut that guy off in traffic, or, you know, it's none of that. It's nothing we've done or not done. It's life.
Right.
That's why we're here. That's why our soul wanted this experience, to experience the dichotomy, to experience the evil and the beautiful, and the blacks and the whites, and everything is an opposite for a reason.
Right.
We wanted this.
The struggle, the refiner's fire that Earth truly is. Wow.
And we've talked about this before, but if you ever go to like a retreat or some sort of deep work healing or something like that, and the instructor or the teachers or whoever it is you're working with says, you did some amazing deep work and you're healed, turn around and run as hard as you can and never believe it. Because you know what we're always in a state of healing. There's always going to be those triggers and wounds, you know, but when somebody tells us that and we truly believe it, and then what happens 6 months later when we screw up or something, I mean, we just belittle and begrudge ourselves so bad. So
yeah, the learning never ends.
That'll work.
We just have to stay through it, right? Like, we navigate better. Man. If you want to leave everybody with one last thing, a gem, a word of wisdom, a thought, a practice.
One last thing is, I can't stress enough the value of the 1 minute a day.
Yeah.
Just like a vitamin. Because not only what is that, it's nothing about connecting to God or your angels or your guides or any of that. It's connecting to you. And that's where it's all at. That's where it's all at. And it takes practice, and it takes some time to get to the sweet spot where you feel the connection. But once you do, you'll crave it. You can't live without it. Even if it's microseconds a day, that's all we need, you know? Yeah. So that, and then maybe give some thought and ponder to the physical body. And we need more grace, and we need more patience and compassion and understanding. Look at the body in a different way than just this powerhouse that we work out and we run and we walk and we do all this and that. It's so much more than that. The body's main mode of even being here with us is what? It's to protect us. It is. What happens when a bee stings you? You don't say, okay, swell, histamines, you know, it just does it. I mean, when you take a bite of salad and chew it and swallow it, do you have to tell the body, okay, separate the vitamin D over here and A right there? I mean, think about it. And it's just such a beautiful creation. And just to have more of an awareness of that. And yes, there is a field of energy around us. And yes, we are absorbent. And yes, body does hold things. And not be so frustrated and angry if we can't get rid of an ache or a pain. Just take a good look at it, you know, and be very gentle with body, and body will talk to you. Yeah. You know, it sounds weird, but it's true.
Absolutely. You know, and that's so valuable, that 1 minute, just connecting with yourself 1 minute a day, because I think so many of us spend our whole lives wanting to disconnect from ourselves and from our bodies, because both of those experiences can be so incredibly painful.
Yeah.
So expanding our distress tolerance, learning to see ourselves through gratitude, our emotions as a protective mechanism, our bodies and the aches and the pains, even the cancers as a protective mechanism, right?
Right.
To pull toxins away and bundle them up into a tumor. And when we can learn to see ourselves through that lens, that even if something is perceived on this earth plane as negative, it has a positive intention for you, and we can reduce the shame and we can shift it.
And remembering everything has an opposite. There's not one thing on earth that does not have an opposite end of the pole. Yeah. It's a planet of polarity. You know, there's opposite ends of every pole. It's always the case.
That could be a part 2.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So if somebody is watching this and they want to work with you, where can they find how to contact you?
They can just I don't have a website.
I know, you're all word of mouth. Do you have an email address?
I guess just my phone number. Just text me.
Totally up to you. If you want to share it here, you can. If not, I could always include it in the notes.
Oh, we can put it in the notes.
Okay. We'll put it in the notes so people can
say it now. Whatever. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. The best way is probably to text, because I'm usually in session and I'll get right back with you. If some people need a phone call, I'm good with that too. And I have an office in Mesa, Greenfield, Baseline area. And at the moment,
sessions too, right?
What's that? Yes, I do remote sessions because I currently live in St. John's, Arizona, and I'm here every other week in the Valley to work. Not sure if I can do remote sessions in St. John's because our Wi-Fi is very temperamental there. But yes, if you're out of town or if you want remote sessions, we certainly can hook that up. So
thank you so much for this conversation.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, friend. I love you too. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye.